Hi, Mark Clayton here and welcome to today's haircut. What I want to go through today is talk you through a haircut which is based around simple layering. It's the idea of giving a strong perimeter but actually focusing on details around the face and the internal layers being a disconnection, but understanding where they are positioned on the head and why they are positioned in a shape to create a very internal layering pattern. So I've wet my mannequin down, I've sectioned off. Let me show you a little bit of the details on the section pattern. So as you can see here with my mannequin, we work through with two diagonal forward sections within the fringe just to subdivide the fringe area. This is really key, focusing on the top of the head, giving the round so the hair will all naturally fall forward and really position itself with the natural growth of the hair itself. So as it falls forward, what it will do, it will just sit very natural and very easy for us to work. So the two diagonal forwards really position the perfect shape for this fringe. Then we focused on the key thing, which is our perimeter at the back. As we focus on the perimeter, we're looking at how thick we want the perimeter to be. So from a profile parting, which has gone from the back of the fringe all the way down to the center in the nape, I've gone through to use this as a guide to subdivide my left and right. I've thought about how thick I want my perimeter to be. Within fashion, it's really important to think about the key things for our clients. Here it is perimeter density, so how thick things are, which is really important. That's going to give us a thicker shape, it's going to give us a squarer finish on the perimeter, it's going to make the hair look thicker and fuller. So for fine hair, working with curl, working with movement as well, it gives us a lot more structure. It's one of the main reasons, if you remember, why extensions and wefts were added into hair was for the thickness and that volume. So working from the occipital bone and working diagonal forwards down and around towards the top of the ear gives me that really nice key shape. That can be adjusted higher up if the hair is finer and we want a thicker perimeter, or lower down if we want maybe a rounder shape, more layers to create that overall finish. So with that in place, I've then gone to think about my layering pattern, what I want to create through the back. Now this can be worked into a square for a wider shape around the head, or I've worked into a triangle shape, working from the point at the back of the fringe, working diagonal backs to my to my diagonal forwards, creating, if you will, a simple radial parting type shape. What that's done is it's subdivided the hair around the curvature on the head, allowing, when the layers fall, to sit smaller through the top, but then naturally, because it's in a triangular shape, wider towards the outside. That will give us a shape which is going to give us a taller shape through the front, but keeping it nice and flat when you look face on. When you look to the side, a lot more volume and roundness, but pushing the layers through to the side itself. So a lot of volume in that area, which is really good. If it's squarer, it will be squarer through the top, make it look wider above, but again, the triangular will make it look thinner through the top itself. So always think about, when you're placing that triangular shape in through the back, how wide you want that shape to be. When I turn the head to the side, you can see the join and the connection point here. This area will be how wide and how thick my perimeter is through the front. So think again, understanding when I work diagonal back, do I want this to be further towards the back, making the layers more linear and more streamlined, get my teeth in, say correctly, towards the back area, or do I want it to be a little bit wider? The natural shape will be rounded towards the front. I'll see more layers around the face and the side, above the ears. But also it gives me a thinner perimeter density in the front area. So that is really key in the placement of our layers when we're choosing that shape through the back. I like to work a couple of inch or so, a couple of inches back from my hairline behind the ear, because that maintains a nice even density with the hair at the back towards the hair on the side. So that becomes really key. Then we've gone through and we've had our sections in place. So we have our perimeter, our fringe, our internal layers around the back, and then our side areas as well. These will be cut in a couple of ways. As you'll start to see, I will create my perimeter, then I'll work some layers around the face, and then I'll work internally. So I will be recutting this a couple of times just to evolve the shape naturally and get my natural feel into the haircut. So let's go through and start cutting. I'm first of all going to work through my perimeter at the back. So as I work through the perimeter at the back, the whole key idea here is to start to see a shape along the perimeter. So as I go to work, I want to create a lot of texture, a lot of movement. This can be done again in many ways. What kind of shape do I want? What kind of feeling do I want in the perimeter? Do I want a point cut area, something blunt, something heavier? Do I want a lot of texture? Do I want it to look wispy or more grown out? How do I want that shape to be? For me today, I want a very simple point cut technique and work with a very large section, as I want to maintain that feeling of disheveled kind of movement to it. I want to maintain that feeling of just a chunkier texture, but also as well something that shows graduation and a little bit of unevenness. So let's go through and cut that perimeter and you'll see my technique. I'm going to comb down and work from the center first. As I comb, I'm going to comb down just nice and clean. I'm not going to dig the comb in, I'm going to keep it just nice and simple. Comb down, hold the hair. I'm going to take about an inch off, just remove the hair that's going to be in my way. As I cut through the perimeter, let me lift up so you can see. I'm just going to work through with a point cut, opening the blade nice and wide and working through with that scissor strike. As I'm cutting, I'm really being conscious not to cut too close to my fingers, so I can leave some length out and to create some texture, some visible texture, but also to create a softer result. When I comb through, making sure the comb is square through the back, keeping my corner around the side, holding that corner. And again, let's lift up so you can see. I'm going to tilt slightly forward, working that blade. My scissors are on an angle, creating depth. And then as I work back on the opposite shape, and now strengthen up that point cut so the finish doesn't become wispy, actually maintains a bit more strength because I'm cutting left and right. Two areas in there. As we know, as a general rule, short hair will push long hair in the point cut technique. So by working back and forth, what I naturally create is a straighter fill through that perimeter. As you can see here, nice large strike, nice and soft. Just rotate the hand, come back, take that corner off, and that's enough to change the shape. Working nice and square, working nice and solid all the way through. I'm just going to lean in front of the camera as I go check the balance, make sure that's nice and clean, nice and balanced. There we go, pretty happy. Little corner here, again, where you can see I'm working over to one side. That will naturally happen because my body position is out. When you're working in the salon or you're working on your clients behind the chair, always feel free to stand directly behind your client as you're cutting. That way you'll get a much stronger balance on both corners. But there we go, that's the perimeter finished. We've worked through with a nice shape. Again, medium density hair, little wave to it, and that point cut has just broken up that texture, giving it a really, really easy, soft fill. So now, where do we work to now? Fringe. Fringe for me is already placed in. I just want to go and put a few breaks into the fringe. So by combing the fringe forward, I'm going to comb down, and I'm going to just work a little bit larger into those areas. And as you can see, as I'm point cutting through here, I'm just breaking up that shape, creating a little gap. So when the hair starts to dry, that will separate and you'll start to see little gaps and little holes through the fringe. Now the fringe is really key, very personal within the approach. I went through before and just removed the length. Now as you saw, I just went through and put some breaks into it just to give it a nice detail feel. When we dry it, you'll see those little separated areas, exposing a little bit of skin from underneath, giving a really nice contrast between the skin tone and the hair itself. So we go for the fringe. You can place in any fringe you want. Do something with a sweep, a little curtain fringe to it. You can work through a lot more texture, do something sweeping, something that's going to kick and roll. Lots of choices with fringes. I have many other videos with fringes out there, so please go and check those out. So from this position, I now want to start working internally. The importance now for me is my layers at the back. And I'm going to leave the areas at the front till last, just because we can have them as an option where we want to put more layers around the face or work different details wherever we can. So my internal layers are going to be really fun. We're going to remove the clips, and through this back area I'm going to start to work up. I'm going to start to incorporate all the hair together. I do want to cut this in one section because what I want to do through this back area is really work with over direction. So my over direction is going to be key in the back, because as you can see through here, by working all of the hair being pushed into the center, converging into the middle, the areas on the corners have had to travel a further distance to get to the center. So naturally, when I drop the hair down, they'll be longer. I want to create a lot of texture through here, but I also want to give a bit more height. So my shape, when I cut it, even though it will be over directed into the center, will be in this position, going from shorter at the front to longer at the back. That way again, I'm going to have more height through the center. working to a longer, more cascading shape towards the corners, giving me a lot more width to meet my perimeter at the base. So here we go. I'm actually going to work from this side, again for camera purposes that you can see, and very importantly as well, when I do work from this side, my finger position is in a much easier, cleaner spot to work. I'm working with a large section of hair, so with the large section of hair I'm working with, you will start to see a lot of graduation. We want the graduation for softness. Again, it creates texture. Again, it's really nice to work with on all hair types, especially if we're working with thicker hair types as well. So comb up, find my guide. You can see my guide working through the back. I've kept my comb and my fingers together. I'm going to comb forward. Just you can see I'm going to cut from the outside edge. Now the difference being here is I'm cutting from the back outside edge into the middle. My blades are pointing towards the front because as the hair falls down, I'm going to end up with short hair on top of long hair. That will maintain a softer finish and result when I go through to blow dry. It will mean less personalizing, it will mean less work I have to worry about seeing lines or discrepancies in the point cut. So just allow me to be a little bit smoother, a little bit softer with my execution. As you can see through here, I want to soften even more. You can see my shape is going again from short to long. I've reworked this a couple of times. I'm working forward just so you can see on the camera. But again, I'm point cutting back and forth now, using my hand to rotate. Now I've removed the length from working from the back through to the front. I'm now just going in randomly, removing length, creating texture through this whole section itself. So as you can see here, I'm now going in deeper, removing length, creating texture. With such a large section, as I'm going through to close the blade that's closing the finger that's closing the scissor, the thumb, is allowing the top blade on top to close down. So that's scoring the hair on top. In turn, what I'm actually really doing is layering this side of this section. So to mirror that on both sides, I'm now going to work around to the other side. I'm going to do the same position. I'm going to create the same texture on the other side. So I now make sure I'm balanced and I'm even on both sides of the head. I don't just texturize one side. I want to make sure that I'm even and I texturize both, because that way I get this even result, more balanced and clean. By cutting just with my thumb and not closing really sharp as I close the scissors, what's naturally happening is I'm letting the blade close. As it hits the hair, it just scores the hair, cutting just a little bit, creating internal texture within this back area and not removing any length. The key thing about that is I don't want to take length away to change the shape. I want to remove weight to enhance the texture and the movement that I get within this section. So with that in place, just a quick recap. We elevated up, we worked from shorter at the front to longer, cutting from outside edge in, so short hair would lay on top of long hair. And then went back through on either side and gently scored by creating texture internally on the underside of this whole section. So as we drop that down, you can start to see that shape. You can see it working from shorter in the center to longer on the outsides. When I comb that down, let that move, you can see that beautiful layering pattern is now working all the way into that back. Lots of beautiful movement, lots of shape around that center, and again, cascading towards the corners. We always must check our perimeter to make sure the perimeter works well. So we comb the perimeter down, and as you can see through here, you have a couple of long sections, which again, we just want to go through and just take off. Again, that point cutting back and forth now for softness, just to blend, is really key. I don't have to go through and work left to right as I did when I was removing the length earlier, because now I'm just blending in this top section to the underneath. Here we go, all the way through, point cut and finish. And this technique is really good when you're working on straight hair, type 1, type 2, even type 3, just understanding how the scissors enter the hair and the texture of the shape that we're looking to create. And you'll see that through the finish as well, how that develops. So we've worked on our perimeter, we worked on our fringe, and now we've worked on the internal layers. So the last sections we're going to work on are going to be our movements around the side of the head itself. So we're going to remove them both. as I comb down, I'm going to keep my sections in place just as much as possible because I want to show the disconnections and cut them in a disconnection. So I'm going to keep them that way. Comb down, and as you can see I have a guide from my section behind, which I will move forward through to the front. So coming through to that corner, I find my guide from behind, and I'll follow the same shape that I did in the very beginning, by point cutting from left to right, removing length as I go, keeping the hair in its natural full position, giving me maximum weight on them corners. Do the same on the other side, again keeping nice and clean, so combing the hair in the center just away, so visually we can see what we're doing nice and easy. Combing down, finding our guide. I can see my guide nice and clean underneath that section. Letting the scissors rest on my finger so they're supported as I'm closing the blade and moving through this section. Back and forth all the way to my corner. Very important, I want to keep my corner in place, so I don't want to round the corner or lose the corner. I want to keep that structure and that movement there. So very key in understanding that length. Check my balance, a little bit more length off here, so let's go through and keep that nice and clean. I'll lift up just so you can see that corner. And just back and forth, back and forth. Okay, so here in place, let me raise up just a tiny bit for you, as I now want to show you this shape around the face. So coming through to this front area, I now want to create a layer around the face. I don't want to put a lot of layers in this area. I want to use the shape that I have behind to layer and to blend, but I will layer a little bit when it comes to the finish of it. But I want to put a bit of shape around the face. I'm going to put a bit of movement through here. So as we go through, I will just take that first section, I will comb down, use my fingers to condense that together, and I'm going to cut with the blade pointing up vertically into the hair. Work about 3 or 4 hairs, 6 or 7 hairs inside, but not going horizontally, going as vertical as possible. Sliding my fingers down and re-establishing that shape, and just continually moving that on until the perimeter. Being very cautious not to cut my corner off, so making sure that I do still keep my corner. Do the same technique on the other side. As you can see through here, I'm going to comb down, remove the section of hair that I want to work with. So just being very visual here really with the cut, not really worrying too much about the density, the shape I'm working with. I want to make sure that it's about 1 inch or so in depth, but not being too precise, because this is an uneven kind of shape. It's going to give me that textured feel, which is really nice, and uneven, because that's what makes it feel more organic and more natural for my client when we start to wear our hair in many different ways with many different textures. So understanding what my client, how she wears her hair and how the hair is styled. So here we go, a few layers through the front. When I just move that around, I'll turn the mannequin around so you can see, but just a little bit of movement now around that face, nothing too much, not layers that are taking the corner away, not removing any length through here, still keeping this corner, but just giving shape through that front area. Now finally, we're going to work on the layers through the top. So let me just lower the mannequin down a little bit more again. And then through this area, I want to go through and just to layer the back, I'm going to work with a bit of over direction, but I don't want to go through and take away any density or strength that I've maintained already on my corner, on the perimeter. So I'm going to look for my curvature. I'm going to work a horizontal section or horizontal parting across my curvature, creating the section above. So let me turn to the side so you can see that nice and clear. Working across the curvature of the head, that is all the section I'm going to layer. Because if I start to layer further down, I'm going to take weight away and strength away from my perimeter, making it look and feel weaker. So we're going to comb this back. I'm going to take a slight guide from my internal section around the crown area. So let me go and show you that so you can see that. I've just taken, that's probably the best angle there, just taken a little slither of a guide to give me a reference point to work to. I will comb all of this back. Actually, I'm going to stand on the side so you can see this a lot clearer. I'm going to comb back, and I'm going to find that guide so as you can see around the side, and I'm going to go through and work a very deep soft point cut, removing length but also maintaining nice texture. This is purely designed as a connection, not as an actual layer. So that shape there, as you can see when it moves, it now just blends more naturally towards the front, but really gives me that feeling of tightness around the crown because there's weight there. It's not rounded up with short layers. I've got my roundness and stretch through the back, but it's flatter through the sides, but just naturally connected. I'll recreate that on the other side. So again, what I will do, we'll look at my curvature. Again, understanding and worrying about depth on my perimeter. I work horizontally straight across. Release the perimeter. Take a very small guide from the section behind. Comb those two together. Comb up. Mirror. Let me comb that again just so it's a little bit cleaner. There we go. Tilt forward so you can see. Then work that deep point cut all the way through to that area at the front. So I've maintained that texture, softness, and as you can see through here, created that wonderful connection through to my corner. And that is the haircut we're working on today. Working with perimeter strength, maintaining density all the way around, and working just a beautiful connection of layers through the front with a short fringe, again, which is disconnected, but really focusing on a lot of layers around the crown and the top, through the back, which is going to give myself lift and shape, but then softening towards the front area. I'm going to go through and apply a blow dry lotion, and we're going to blow dry, working with a little bit of bend, smoothing the fringe, just putting a little bits of detail in, and I'll come back when I show you the finish. Thank you. We can stop now and I'll jump to the finish. What do you think?
Oh, that's great. I mean, I can tell you've done this for a while.
So with the blow dry complete, all we went through to do was just worked with a nice high speed, really rough dry the shape to get some movement and some looseness going through the roots, and then use the brush just to smooth over the ends. Put a little bit of bend in just some places just to get a little bit of movement to it, but really wanted to focus on that smoother, sort of straighter, disheveled kind of result and finish. It wasn't all about creating a lot of curl, a lot of texture messiness, it was just about creating that smoothness to it, but allowing the hair to have a little bit of bend. Focusing on the fringe, you can see just separating the areas that we created those breaks to it, just to give that bit more definition to it. And then as you can see as I spin around, which is really good with those shorter layers, giving that height, that movement around the crown itself. And then you can start to see how that moves forward with those layers, the corner that we've created, and that weight towards the front. So just a really, really key, cool shape that we can play around with little bumps and twists and movements. And clients, when they're drying their hair themselves, can just get their hands involved and really work it with a natural finish and a natural feel. Again, something with this haircut, the details can work on any hair type, any texture, and be really easy for clients to recreate that salon life hair. I hope you like it, and I look forward to seeing you in another video.